I want to thank you all for joining us on this important journey of learning this week. I am a member of the Lethbridge CMARC Committee and president of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance of Lethbridge and area, one of many awesome partners in this journey. You guys are in for a real treat tonight. Arsham Parsi was born in Shiraz, Iran. As a gay Iranian, he felt alone. In Iran, homosexuality is illegal. Punishment for engaging in sexual behavior with someone of the same sex includes imprisonment, flogging, and execution. Socially, the stigma attached to homosexuality carries the consequence of isolation, forced heterosexual marriages, and exclusion from one's family. As he says, it means a life lived in fear. But at the age of 15, Arsham discovered solace in the internet. He began volunteering for underground gay organizations, and at 22, he began working for the Persian Gay and Lesbian Organization. He networked with doctors to provide HIV testing and responded to emails from suicidal gay teenagers. The strict laws against homosexuality forced him to keep his work secret from his family and his friends. His work expanded, providing support and opportunities for connection for the Iranian queer community. His international media profile increased as he continued to educate those outside of his country about the Iranian situation. He understood the risk he was taking, but his fear was outweighed by a great sense of responsibility he felt to his community. It wasn't long, however, before the risks became too great to ignore and his fears were realized. In 2005, he learned that he was a target and that his organization was the topic of many interrogations. As the days and weeks went by, he could feel them getting closer. He knew that if he was to protect himself and his family, he had no choice but to flee. Telling his family nothing of the true reason he was leaving, he boarded a train, crossed the border into Turkey, and claimed refugee status. In his own words, "As the train crossed the border into Turkey, I looked out the window at the Iranian flag illuminated by the border lights. More than ever, I felt a connection to the waving cloth. Despite all I had endured, it was still my country, my home that I was leaving behind. I leaned back in my seat, grateful for his coolness, closed my eyes, and waited for the sense of relief that I longed for. Leaving, finally, I had expected to feel light, comfortable, safe. Instead, my stomach tightened with sadness and anger. Why was I forced to flee? To leave behind my family, friends, and home, just because of who I love? As the flag disappeared in the darkness, I vowed I would continue my work. I would work on behalf of gay men and women left behind, living in fear of torture and execution. I promised myself that one day I would return to my country, free to be who I am. Until that day, I would live in exile." After almost 13 months in limbo, he was finally granted refugee status by the UN Refugee Agency. In 2006, he was resettled to Canada. Immediately upon arriving in Canada, he resumed his work. He is now the executive director of the Toronto-based organization Iranian Railroad for Queer Refugees. It is essential that the international community knows about the human rights abuses against the queer community in Iran. We want to work to increase public awareness of these issues. We also provide support, emotional, legal, and financial, to refugees and immigrants who have been forced to leave Iran because of persecution on the basis of their sexual orientation or gender identity. The Iranian Railroad for Queer Refugees is actively working on behalf of more than 280 refugee claimants living in limbo throughout the world, as well as in hiding in Iran. This work is so important, he says. It is what I was meant to do. Please help me welcome a modern-day human rights hero, Mr. Arsham Parsi.
I don't recall when you committed suicide. I cannot remember the exact date that I came to your room and saw those bloody sheets of yours. Your mother was crying and I was mad of your parents. But I remember that on that particular day, I truly became Arsham Parsi and decided to dedicate myself to working for the freedom of queers from Iran. Now, I miss you a lot, and I would like to write this letter to you. October 6, 2010, Lethbridge, Alberta. To you, my beloved friend. You know what? I'm proud to say that my name is Arsham Parsi. I'm the founder and executive director of Iranian Railroad for Queer Refugees, IRQR, an international queer human rights non-governmental organization based in Toronto, Canada. My primary mission is to aid and assist to the best of my abilities Iranian gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and transgendered all over the world. The IRQR is a very active, leading NGO that works on behalf of the global population of Iranian queers. We document human rights violations against Iranian queers on the basis of their sexual orientation and gender identity. We provide letters of support for Iranian queer asylum seekers and refugees, and we vigorously support anti-homophobia and anti-persecution efforts in Iran. Our material is widely respected for its accuracy and credibility. I remember those days when we did not have anyone to talk to about our secrets. We had nothing but our loneliness. We thought that we were the only ones in the world who had these strange feelings, and we felt guilty for being sinners. To aid you in better remembering the harsh, violent, and often lethal persecution of being a queer in Iran, I will share my own story. I was born one morning in September 1980, just a few days before the war between Iran and Iraq, in Shiraz, the sixth largest city of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Not long after completing my basic education, I came to terms with my sexual identity. I then began to meet Iranian queers and do what I could to do, and aid and assist them in a most careful and discreet manner. Then, on that rainy evening, I met you at my class. I still remember your red umbrella that you left in the class on purpose in order to create the opportunity for me to bring it to you and start a conversation. We became friends and shared our secrets. Our friendship didn't last long before you decided to take your life after your mother saw you in your bed and with your boyfriend. I cannot forgive you for not locking your door. I still disagree with your decision, and I believe there were other options than killing yourself. I lost you because our families and society could not tolerate us. This is why I decided to stop these kind of actions and do something for my queer community. And on that day years ago, I didn't imagine that one day I would be where I'm standing now. It was October 2003. I organized a clandestine Yahoo chat group for queer Iranians called Voice Celebration. There were a total of 50 participants. We established contacts with each other for mutual support and to exchange views on how best to remedy the oppressive civil and queer rights situation in Iran. What was most striking for me about the conversations and exchange of information at Voice Celebration was how many of us were operating under false identities. Nobody dared out publicly or under their real name due to fear of arrest, torture, and even execution if we were discovered by the authorities, so our Voice Celebration passed in silence. My work in the field of queer advocacy in Shiraz attracted the attention of the authorities. I was forced to flee Iran on March 5, 2005, because I feared persecution and even possible execution under Iran's harsh Islamic legal code, by which gays in Iran can be sentenced to death. I traveled by train to Turkey, where I registered as a refugee at the Ankara office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. I was one of the lucky ones whose case was accepted by UNHCR. I lived in Turkey for 3 months before my case was finally approved. I was invited to the Canadian Embassy in Ankara 2 months later. And in May 2006, I arrived in Canada to start a new life. I received a very warm welcoming from Canadians, and I'm sure without their support, I couldn't have done anything. Now living in a safe country, I still consider myself first and foremost an Iranian. I can never forget that I'm in exile due to my own sexual orientation. This situation is both a burden and a tremendous personal responsibility for me. In March 2005, as I crossed the border out of Iran into Turkey, I promised myself, my nation, and my people that I would one day return to a free, open, and democratic Iran. To that end, I promised that I would fully devote my labor to achieving for myself and my fellow citizens in Iran that treasured dream of desire of many millions around the globe, and which so many in the West take for granted, like the act of breathing. I speak of freedom. As the founder and executive director